Welcome to the Sutherland Report yet again. It's my privilege to be able to join you. And I am in another undisclosed location. I think the phrase tonight will be, we are all in our undisclosed locations. Now, I'm going to bring on a friend of mine who's bringing on another friend of hers. And as I've titled it, Child Trafficking is Real. Let's have that discussion. One of the discussions out there has been that conspiracy theory has gone from 40 years to 6 hours to, in many times, down to 4 minutes. There's a lot going on in our world, and there's some very, very, very brave people fighting things to bring things to our attention. I am very grateful for that, as are others. But sometimes we have to have those difficult discussions because cognitive dissonance is real. People do not believe us. So that's why you bring the experts on to say. So here we go. We bring them on. Good evening. Well, I'd say good evening from my end, ladies. I hope you are well. T, is good to see you, my friend. And Dottie, it's a real privilege to meet you. So thank you very much indeed for joining me tonight. Really much appreciated.
I'm honored to be here.
No, that's fantastic. One of the amazing things about the technology is that we can do this, and it's really important that we do. Dottie, and then I will turn to T to say, Dottie, could you introduce yourself, explain who you are, what you do, and then let's go from there.
Okay, well, I guess first I'm a sixth generation Texan, and I rescue victims of human trafficking. I've done so for the past 20 years. In 2005, I triggered the largest rescue of trafficking victims in U.S. history, and I've honored to do it every single day for the past 20 years.
Wow. Wow. T, could you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. I'm honored also to be here. Thank you, Mark, and I'm just really honored to get here, to be here also with Dottie. Also, I'm T. It's actually a nickname I go by. I'm actually it's due to the fact that I have a pretty high level active case. My son's name is Jonah. But that's all I'm going to really go into on that today, as far as that goes. I'm somebody that's that due to that pretty high level active case, it's spanned over years. It's an international child trafficking case that stems from the Obama-Clinton administration. Your pretty high level hierarchy type bloodline case is what it is. So due to that, I'm somebody who became a survivor, overcomer. I'm still walking in that, and being an overcomer. And it catapulted me into also being somebody that actually works in aiding, being an advocate and tracking and helping other children come home, be rescued, also be in the prevention mode against government-sponsored kidnapping and mind control.
Right. And the thing is, if Roseanne Barr can discuss these things, then we can, because we are dealing with, I think, a lack of disbelief in many ways. And Dottie, does that mean, if you are a sixth generation Texan, does that mean that you had relatives that were at the Alamo fighting?
I think they came just after that.
Right. Okay.
They cleared the way and then they came over. But I'm so proud that my family did choose to leave Germany and come here back in the 1800s. And, I've lived in a few other places, but I've always come home to Texas. I love it.
Brilliant.
Very proud of
myself. I've been to Texas a number of times, and I agree with you. I love it. I think for a variety of different reasons. And as I was just saying off camera, to give everyone a sort of geography lesson, the UK fits into the whole of Texas nearly 2.5 times. That is how big your whole continent on. Dottie, you talk about a case in 2005 We start with an infamous case in 2010, which is when the tragic earthquake in Haiti happened. And I want to tell you a little anecdote, which I began to talk about off camera, but to lay this out. I have a dear friend of mine who shall be named nameless, who was working for a charity and was actually out in Haiti for a short period of time to work for a particular charity to help bring aid to that situation. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think in many ways there are huge questions that he had, especially as he was supposed to be out there building houses and just felt that this was not happening quickly enough. And he came home. He wasn't very well, but he came home, and there have been questions, and I'm not never going to name him, but there are questions I still want to talk about. So it was a case of they then the Clinton Foundation goes out there. Bill Clinton is asked to represent that interesting organization called the United Nations of Let's Impose Communism on the whole of the world. That's my personal opinion. Then he goes out there, and then we have the case of 33 children that it looks like that a few missionaries were then wanting to smuggle over the border. Now, there's an article I sent you, and I want to refer to this if you don't mind. So, January the 29th, 2010, Clinton friend Laura Salisbury and child trafficking in Haiti. Former President Clinton accepted expanded role as special envoy in Haiti on behalf of the United Nations to lead the coordination of international earthquake recovery. On January the 29th, 2010, less than 3 weeks after the earthquake, Haitian authorities arrested 10 US Baptist missionaries for attempting to take 33 children by bus across the border into the Dominican Republic without the proper documentation. A week later, the missionaries were charged with child kidnapping and criminal association, while the missionaries claimed good intention and ignorance of Haitian laws. Haitian prosecutors argued that there had been intentional wrongdoing in the course of a month, and President Clinton brokered the release of all the missionaries except for the group leader, Laura Salisbury. What is your opinion on that? What experience or knowledge of that particular incident do you have?
Well, in 2010, I received an urgent message from a private investigator. A nurse from a hospital on Twitter had put a message to the world for help. And I remember I was out and about. I had a mobile phone. I answered it. And she said, "They're stealing the kids. They're stealing the kids. We need to help her." And I said, "Okay, send me the information." And it was both the quickest and the easiest thing I've ever done. But I triggered that rescue. And I triggered the interception of those children at the border. And the way I did so is I had made a lot of personal relationships in my role of building human trafficking task forces throughout the United States. And so some of those contacts were State Department officials. So I immediately got on the phone directly to someone in the State Department that I knew I could trust and shared the message with them. I still have the emails and the messages where I did so. And he was able to move rapidly and alert Haitian authorities who were waiting at the border, and they intercepted, thank God, those children. What a God moment to realize I'm in Texas, out and about doing my day, and those children were so quickly rescued by Haitian authorities. It turns out the 33 orphans, 33, think of that. Think of the child you love and multiply that times 33 times. And the first information I got back is those weren't orphans, they had parents. So somebody's taking 33 children, claiming they're orphans, but they have parents. And let's take a breath and imagine that for a moment. Sometimes we read headlines and we scoot past them and we don't stop to comprehend the words. 33, more than 24 children who had parents that 10 people are claiming are orphans. Wow. And so Haitian authorities intercepted the children, identified who they were, returned them to where they should have been, and certainly kept them from leaving an entire country. Those children would have been invisible in the world. The next information I got is they were taking them to an orphanage in the Dominican Republic that hadn't been built yet, that didn't exist. This isn't just a mistake or a misunderstanding. We have to really stop and think of every word in those stories. How can a human being accidentally take 33 children away from parents and call them orphans?
Right. Yep.
Even in chaos.
Yep.
How can they not only take them, but design an exit to another country?
Right.
You think 33 children from Texas are going to trip across a border and we're not going to ask a lot of hard questions and hold some folks accountable? And Haiti did that. What a wonderful group of officials that stepped up immediately. There was very little notice, and they were on it so quickly and so effectively. And then imagine a political leader from another country comes in and tells you how to prosecute, how to handle, whether you can prosecute, who gets prosecuted, and finally that all get let go. I hope that never happens in Texas. If it has, or it does, I will be there to say no, that's not okay.
So what you're
that story.
Right. Sorry. So what you're referring to in this case is that Bill Clinton, as we've said in the beginning of this particular article that I'm reading out, then is appointing the UN Special Envoy, the fact that the UN is even appointing him. And of course, there are huge, the Clinton Foundation is extremely suspect and huge questions in how it gets its money, where it goes. So suddenly he goes in there and these telling the authorities what to do. Is that what you're referring to in that situation?
Yeah, I'm questioning why would anyone think that's okay? Because it happens. So some group of adults in the world just let that slide by. And 2024, when it came, I said, I want the world to be safer for mothers and children. Of course, I want it safe for men and everybody, with or without children. But could we at least start where children and mothers are protected as the special life that they are, and they're not? Think about our world right now. They're bait, they're targets, they're in trouble all the time because of outside forces, and this is no different example. Those children were not theirs to take, and saying they didn't understand policy and all that, well, that's you should. That's not an excuse. And then finding they had families. Do you know, just imagine, again, back to who you love the most. If you don't know where they are and that they're okay, and there's been an earthquake, the terror that goes through their families is unforgivable. I work with missing families. Let me tell you, they don't eat, they don't sleep, they can't do any medical appointments or work or go to the doctor. So you can speak to this. There is no peace for a second. And it doesn't get better with time, it gets worse. So that is real harm that comes to multiple people, not even simply the 33 children. So anyhow, referring to that memory of that day, it's the easiest thing I've ever done. I didn't even know what that case meant at the time. I realize now, I don't know if anyone knew what was going on in disaster areas before that case. I think it had been happening silently for years for many countries and disasters and people and nonprofits claiming to do work that maybe they weren't really doing, or if they weren't doing it the way they said. And I'm grateful that we're looking at it now, and I urge all your listeners to question, to write, to call. It's not okay that children ever had this happen to them.
You see, it's creating a discussion about a lot of issues, and I'll give you another little input on that. When a previous Prime Minister of ours, David Cameron, who suddenly come back as Foreign Secretary, which is another program in itself I won't bore you with, but unfortunately I'd have to be very, very controlled not to swear throughout the whole of the program, because it just makes me extremely furious, partly because it's linked. But when he was Prime Minister in the past, and I can't think of the date, he put a policy in that meant that in agreement with, of course, the UN pushing that forward, that countries would give 0.7% of their gross domestic product towards NGOs, basically, towards what they call charitable causes, which then is very open to abuse. But it then becomes the NGO massive lobbying group, if not employee and expansion of that. Because out of what happened in Haiti in 2010, there was then the investigation by Oxfam in regard to some of the behavior of their employees on the ground. And that is on an Oxfam website. I am not talking out of my rear end on that. That is out there. And also the implications in regard to how certain Oxfam workers, and in regard to sexual abuse and all the rest. In other words, what I'm saying is that this NGO lobbying employment is another issue that is in the background, and you're right. Correct. in regard to that scandal. Why do you think it had taken until then for people to begin to question the whole thing of charitable NGO and their behavior? And also because it does in regard to UN soldiers in certain parts of the world, they'd also been abusing their power as well. Why has it taken
I've
so
had
long?
a victim directly that I served that was trafficked for sex by a UN soldier throughout the world.
Wow.
So I can speak directly to that. It's definitely something we need to not let it happen. Whether it's one kid or all of them, it's our duty to not allow that to just because there's a nonprofit organization. You'll notice I don't have a nonprofit organization, even though I've been executive director and leaders of several. I didn't find that world allowed me to do what I need to do. And I didn't find that I was comfortable working under some of the leadership. And I think the reason it's allowed to continue is people want to feel comfortable that problem's being solved without getting themselves into the difficulties of solving it. I'm not trying to cast a judgment on people. I'm just saying that's my experience.
Why do you feel that you couldn't work within that arena? I mean, if that's a question you don't want to ask, that's fair enough. But what structures did they have in place that you felt I can't work within these structures?
Well, like that case I described, I moved really quick, rapidly, didn't need permission, didn't need to ask anybody. I was on my own at that time. And they're set up from immediately, the way you structure the boards and everything, to start to get off mission and to start to become bureaucratic and to start to become layered, where there's all these other things happening rather than what your mission was. And it's by design from the beginning. I'm not saying they're bad. Some are, some aren't. But you can't solve urgent problems by committee. You can't solve urgent problems by rules that hamstring your employees so much they can't really help the victim. And then when you get into the money, as soon as you get more money, there's more staff and expenses. And they all have this formula. Another podcast, I'll tell you the formula that makes it look like the big bloated ones are lean, and the ones that are a little, like actually doing the work, we look like we're bloated. And there's a whole formula that tilts in favor of the other ones. So I think it's real important to not just assume things are solved or handled, but we, the public, my favorite, we the people, my favorite phrase, need to own some responsibility for all this and use our super skills wherever they are. And we don't need permission or a title to save 33 children in Haiti.
Right.
I didn't need a position or a title. I knew it was wrong and I fixed it. And I fixed it with my contacts. I didn't go to someone else. And they were brilliant. And the Haitian authorities, who I never met, who I never knew, I would love someday to tell them how amazing they were, because they weren't bureaucratically bloated. They did their job. And I think in America, people thought, oh, we'll step in because nothing's happening in Haiti. And they actually stepped in front of the people that were doing their job. And we don't want to do that as Americans. We want to go into a country and help them, not tell them how to do it. And maybe that can be different now.
It's interesting because if people research charities, I'm not going to name anyone, but yes, I have named not Oxfam because of their investigation in regard to some of their employees' behavior. There are others.
Yeah.
But if you look at their accounts and you suddenly see the sort of the CEO, the person at the top, and what they're earning, and sometimes you think, wow, that's a heck of a lot of money. Why are you being paid that amount? Why are other people being paid a particular amount? I always find that quite questioning. I mean, the answer is, well, we need people of a certain skill level. But you've already laid it out. You've said if you're starting to make decisions by committees, and I suppose that phrase, Dottie, of follow the money comes up immediately, doesn't it?
Well, I look at it this way. I would love if our value system did pay folks that do good work like that a lot of money. But I also want to make sure that they're in there with that lot of money doing what their mission was. So the goal is to find the right purpose to fit with the right person, and then pay them commensurate with their skill level. And I think when we say nonprofit, we think everyone has to work for free. No. And so somewhere along the way, I think the ones that rise to the top and get past that particular problem are really good. Money is their first focus, maybe. I can't solve that problem. I don't know. I can just tell you my experience. And I do what I do, whether I'm paid or not. It's helpful when I am, because I have bills like everybody else. But I'll get up on a Sunday morning on Christmas and do what I do with a smile, with no one being paid. And I think in the world, if we all find our purpose that God gave us, like our whatever creator brought us here, how can you go wrong? And maybe some folks are off their purpose for chasing a dollar. I don't know. I wish I could solve that problem. But I just also wanted to speak for parents. I don't think people really realize the pain and torture a parent goes through when they don't know where their kid is. And when I met T, I don't know if you've seen the Terminator movies, but I'll just briefly describe it. In Terminator 1, Sarah Connor comes and seeking help, freaked out, my kid, the machines, she's terrified, she's innocent, she's beautiful and sweet and naive. And in Terminator 2, she's just totally buff and under control, and she's battling all forces bigger than her, no problem, she'll take them all. And when I met T the first time, she was Sarah Connor 1, fighting this big machine. She didn't even know why it was after her. And when she reconnected with me, she is Sarah Connor 2. She has exceeded all my skills, all my knowledge, and she is the leader now taking us forward.
Thank you.
T, what do you say to that? What do you say to that being compared to the Terminator heroine?
Well, it's I'm trying not to do a bad Maybelline commercial right now with the. No, I'm pretty humbled by that, actually. Yeah, it's been I have to say, it's been a really, it's been a huge long road. I have to say that, but I do feel like that the Lord has brought me my faith, I think, and has brought me through such a horrific nightmare is really what it is. And but I want to say, because again, I'm up against, is government sponsored mind control and kidnapping and trafficking. And so that's, and I in saying that, that is the nutshell of what I experience and what I'm up against. But in that, I feel like that the Lord brought me through so many different hurdles that I was able to overcome. And because I have such a tenacity, to fight for my son, to see him come home, to believe that, to know that that's going to happen. But on that road, I learned that, you know what, it's about paying it forward. And it's, again, not only he matters, but there's others with him, that there's not a mom like me. There's not another one. There may not be, or they may not know what to do. I mean, so I feel like, it isn't just him. It's about all these others that are out there with him. And I felt compelled, like, okay, God, like I gotta, if I open that door with him, the others, this is a chance for them to come out too. And so in that whole thing, it was like crash course of how do I do this? What am I up against? How did they do this? And so it was a methodology that I found myself learning about how to undo. And most people in the world do not understand or have no wherewithal at all that there is a whole level, that's a hierarchy level of child trafficking that is happening through our government, through those UN people, through those NATO, and through our courts. I'm going to tell you right now, our judicial system, those guys are just tools. They're only tools, and to be utilized to take children, target parents like me, because that is what happened to me, and to take our children. So, and it's not addressed. It's really like most people don't even want to go there. They don't even want to topple this subject, right? And so, and by the way, I have a little history that a lot of these type of cases that are they're government sponsored kidnapping, the origination of those type of cases, by the way, are out of your country, the UK, just so you're aware, unfortunately. And so, and it trickled down, obviously, to, the Australia and the Oceania, to North America and all over the world, at this point. And so with that said, I found myself with my experience, like God just put people in my path, and that were forensics, that were teaching me, that the law should be something, that the laws that are put in place should be followed and they should work. Okay. And they should work to empower people like Dottie and others, and God willing, and thank God, and there's like just a few good men and women out there. And then, then the rest of us are up against those that it's a machine, and that you would never know is there. And until you start peeling back this onion. So in my situation, in this government sponsored kidnapping, in that I started to unravel like a whole methodology of not just a judicial system. It went higher to the next level. I mean, it went up to like, I'm up against Kamala Harris. It went to that level. And then the next level, it was like, I thought, okay, we should be taking someone like that down. But again, there was hierarchy people. There's people in our structures of government around the world. Goes into the Clinton Foundation. So Obama administration, that's when my child went missing, and it went to somebody sitting right in the State Department that they just repackaged and gave a new name to. Laura Silsby became Laura Gaylor, and she was sitting right in the State Department. Now I had good guys in the State Department that God opened the door to, that helped me. and on children's issue side, we're fighting some on Children's Matters side. But you had intelligence people back there and people that are all completely connected to the Epstein, situation, that are all all involved. Podestas, they were all sitting there with. I went up against Ernie Allen myself, toe to toe, John Walsh's partner, and so this is how high it went. This is that structure, and again. And that, again, going to UN and those world structures that you don't understand, that this is who these guys are really giving orders all the way down to a judicial system, so that children are not just kidnapped through off the street or in a disaster. They're also legally kidnapped through our governments.
Okay, I want to ask the important question here, because which may seem daft, and what you both said up to this point is amazing. Why is this child trafficking going on? There are spiritual elements to this, but why is this going on? I mean, we have that kind of thing, satanic ritual abuse, etc., that happens
right
around the world. Yes, over here, there's historic precedent. I know it may sound like a naive question. What is actually going on here?
Well, I've had 20 years to ponder that question. And what I've come up with is that because free will is really expensive, really costly to give humans free will. And it's not that God allows the trafficking. In fact, if you look into the scriptures, God and Jesus get a little kinetic when people harm children. Jesus said, you should have a millstone around your neck and be in the ocean. And, he says it better than I do, but, and, God rains down some pretty heavy penalties prior to that, even, in the Old Testament. And so I think God made it clear he doesn't accept us harming children. And we have free will, and it's our responsibility. That's what I said earlier on. I keep saying it's all of us adults, responsibility to make this world safe for children and mothers who are most precious in God's view, because that innocent life born into this world, that's the closest we get to him. And that's why I believe the satanic ritual abuse happens, because for whatever reason, people with free will choose they want to harm God. And it took me a long time to figure it out. The easiest way to harm God is through children. And so our children that we're responsible for, that are not being protected, it's not God doing it, it's humans. And we are not stopping them. And I mean, I'm out there, T's out there, you're doing this. I'm not saying that there aren't people trying, but overall, the world has not said we're not going to allow this.
That's right.
And that's what we need to do.
I agree with that. And I have to say too, because what it is that you have people that are of all walks of life, and it goes down to one core root cause, and it's called money. Children become a commodity. They are trafficked across borders within local, state government, and even cities, towns, you name it, in every way, shape, or form. And again, it's all because they're trafficked. There's more money in trafficking a child and humans more than drugs themselves or running guns. Why is that? We should ask ourselves, why is that?
Right. So they're being trafficked. It's like in the situation that happened in Haiti. So these 33 children, they take them over. They're trying to take them over the border in Dominican Republic there. Then what would happen? They are given to other families for money, for adoption? What?
I believe, and I can't know this, my opinion is that they were going to bring them to the U.S. because at that time, you could easily get from the Dominican Republic to the U.S. We had an agreement where it was easy to come and go. And it appeared to me no one would have known they existed, and they would have wound up here invisible. they were stopped, so we don't know, but that's my, my opinion after watching the case all these years. And so imagine you have 33 children that no one knows exist in the world at your disposal. And so I'm just grateful to know that those children aren't wherever they were meant to have been taken. The other thing is that you can research a New York Times article about the unaccompanied minors in the United States that have been found. Again, the government steps in as soon as they're identified and places them. And that article talks about them being placed in slaughterhouses and places like that where they were working. So there's sex trafficking, there's organ trafficking, there's labor trafficking. There's all kinds of ways to turn a human into a commodity. We can't know what was going to happen to those kids, but we can certainly guess and have a shudder of what was possible.
I mean, that's why I'm asking the question, because I'm going, what? Yes, there's satanic ritual abuse. We're in the biggest spiritual battle of our lifetime. I passionately believe that. And Ephesians 6 says we're not fighting flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. And it's just knowing, what is behind this. Are you saying, right, you've got in there missionaries to say, we're taking these children, as I say, without repeating myself, would those children then be up for adoption? T, what do you think?
Well, I don't know. Let me just step. I don't know that the adoption would be necessary, or would it really be an adoption, because I don't know who would know they were here.
Right.
So, and the other thing is, I don't think all the missionaries understood. I think as I watched the case shake out, the Haitian authorities let those missionaries go early because they believed they had been duped. They didn't understand what they were doing. And they put the blame more squarely on Silsby for orchestrating it, and maybe one other person, I can't remember. But most of them didn't know they were duped into helping commit a crime that they weren't aware they were committing, is the way the Haitian authorities described it, if my memory is correct.
Yeah.
Did Silsby go on to represent the organization, what they call a red alert? Suddenly a red alert goes off in states to warn that a child has gone missing. Did she then
get tell you about that?
Yeah, go on. Did she get into that? Go, T.
Yeah, she did. So again, what these people do is just repackage people, because she was working for the Clinton Foundation. And again, I have firsthand knowledge, because my child was a black market adoption. So that she was involved with missing, exploited children. They gave her an AKA, and instead of, now she's Laura Gaylor. Okay. And so they just repackaged her again. And again, I'm telling you, this is all the way to the Epstein Island. I mean, my own child, again, this was a methodology. They take them through the courts. It's a process. My child was also, it's an SRA situation, satanic ritual abuse, where the children like that, you're talking about, like when I got targeted, it goes into different lineages. Bloodline, it means lineage is what it means. It's no different than, you're buying a high bloodline horse. I hate to put it like that, but that's the best way to get have your viewers understand, why that would be important, what that would mean. Like, people spend, millions of dollars on a special to breed a special dog even. I mean, think about that for a minute. So now you have designer children, right? So it kind of falls in that line too, of your designer children, but there's people that actually are trafficking and targeting children. So you have people like the Laura Gaylor working under the Clinton Foundation, the Obama administration. These people are up under the John Kerry. So I want to make sure I mention that, because he was the one that made sure that my child went outside the country, deported him as a U.S. citizen, as though he on his passport said he wasn't a citizen of any country around the world. So this is the methodology I'm talking about. Okay, so
let me say something real quick, just to clear that up, not to stop you, but you have to understand, I worked in unaccompanied minors. I helped immigrant children who were here for 6 years. I'm not an attorney, but the same as an attorney in that role. If there's a child here without one of their parents, we protect them with what's called a special juvenile immigrant visa. So just what she's saying about her son being deported is questionable at best, if not worse. Go ahead,
Right.
T. Sorry, I want people to know that. We protect minors.
Yeah, it's important because, and again, you could see like she's talking about this is the protocol that's really supposed to be in place. And so, I mean, again, if I didn't have at the time when I was working with the State Department, the Bureau of State, I mean, I had help going all the way to the passport police, and they were guiding me. I wouldn't have, there's no way, I mean, in God's green earth, I would know how to do any of that. What I did know how to do was I worked with federal forensic guys that knew how to bring it. That's the terminology, by the way. And they knew the protocol. They knew like what the steps were supposed to be. And so I was just basically trained up to learn how to extract that evidence. And I was very good. I'm still good at that. And so, which is why I'm in the position I'm in today, because I understand how that protocol goes. And then they taught me how the legal world is supposed to work. And instead we have people that instead of the laws that are put in place to protect those children and parents like myself, they are violating the law they're violating the law in general. There's a terminology for that they pretend that they are following protocol, but really they're thwarting it is what they're really doing. So again, you had all of these things put in place to protect children from leaving the country. You have Interpol, you have areas like that. And again, these were all thwarted. And so they were covered up because you have layers of people involved in child trafficking that are in power, and they aren't just, again, the Clinton administration, these people are working with others, like goes all the way to the Drokes affair in Europe. So you have this huge, VIP diplomatic area with embassies you have people placed in those places that are thwarting good people in State Departments, in Inspector General's office, Interpol, that kind of thing, that are placed inside those places to thwart the good people like Dottie fighting these types of situations.
And let me just point out a real clear example. If people don't believe us, they can check facts for themselves. In the Jeffrey Epstein case, the first time he was arrested and prosecuted, the assistant U.S. attorney who signed the plea deal, silencing all the victims, any future people who could be prosecuted, and allowing Epstein to go to work during the day and sleep at night. Alex Acosta, he trained me before that on human trafficking. So I used to call him for help. He was the go-to guy in the prosecutor's office, which is the U.S. attorney, federal prosecutors for trafficking. So he knew what allowing Epstein to have that agreement meant. He told a story in the training of a little girl in paper towels and how horrible. She had her teddy bear next to the paper towels while being raped, and he gets almost teary-eyed when he tells it about how horrible sex trafficking is. And after he made that film is when he signed the agreement to let Epstein walk and to silence those victims. So fact check that yourself if you don't believe it, and then ask yourself, how was that possible?
Are you referring to that situation in Florida? Was Acosta down in Florida? Was it down
Correct.
in Florida? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the
Without
problem.
him, Epstein, in the U.S., if a minor is 14 or under involved in sex trafficking, everyone involved, I mean, the pilot, whoever served him food, whoever transported him, whoever bought them, could face a life sentence, each count. And there was a child of that age, and I saw no life sentences.
So in the Silsby case, then, because it was raised, I mean, there are WikiLeaks, aren't there? Her name then I think appeared in the WikiLeaks and all the rest, as the article refers to. So what was her relationship with the Clinton Foundation then, T? What is her relationship there?
She was employed. She was employed by them, and then again, they utilized her. If you remember, Hillary Clinton was at one point in time a Secretary of State. And so, again, so they utilized her by putting her in with missing exploited children. And so, again, there was missing exploited children is really people. I mean, this is hard, I know, for a lot of people to really understand. Again, I'm going to go into methodology again, because it's almost like you got a twofold situation. One side is made to appear like they're helping victims, and as though they're, like my child was on missing exploited children, the whole wall at one point in time with the case. And then next thing you know, you got people like Laura that are placed inside. They're working with Ernie Allen, John Walsh's former partner, or they were actually partners. They created that organization. And so she's placed there to be basically a gatekeeper, to make sure that these children, that they actually are funneled through this other side that's really not about saving children or protecting children whatsoever. So in my role, like I was catapulted into, the next type of methodology is those front organizations, those front government NGOs that are not really saving children, that go like around the world, that are connected to UN, UNICEF. I could go on, and I know it's hard to name some of those, but I think a lot of digs and exposure has been really out there, showing that there's so many fronts that are going on, that with the intelligence world, the CIA finders. I mean, that's kind of out there known now, that these guys are trafficking children, utilizing the people that are placed inside those organizations to make sure that those children literally are trafficked, and they protect the people that are in this layered governmental positions, is what it is. They're violating the law to enforce the law. That's what I meant to say.
Right.
That's what they do.
That's a good bumper sticker. I want to make just clarification from my experience. I'm not stepping over T, but I believe that what I read is that she worked in the Amber Alert system.
She did.
That's it.
So I don't know that. I think those are two a little bit different organizations that work together, and I don't want to be wrong about that, but I did read that. And so you realize the Amber Alert system, of all the people you'd hire in all the world, is that your best hiring choice? I can only question that.
Could you just explain? I know I might have explained it badly, but could you explain the Amber Alert system? Why the importance of that within America?
So with certain criteria, when a child goes missing and you have maybe a license plate, or there's some criteria that law enforcement can request an Amber Alert. It was named after a little girl who went missing. And so those alerts go out to cell phones and on the signs that go over the freeway that are digital, and they're very effective, hugely effective. You'll usually see that a child is found pretty quickly when you get that Amber Alert. And so they've been very much, I think, responsible for stopping the out and out just kidnapping of a kid off the street, of a kid out of a store. That and cameras have made it so you don't see those so much anymore. Now what you see is children that are tricked, groomed, lured, that the bad guys adjusted. We still have a problem, but they don't get away with that problem like they did in the 70s and 80s so much. So there's a whole system in place that the entry in is through law enforcement. I can't just call and get someone an Amber Alert, even though I led a nonprofit that all we did was missing people. And our nonprofit was named Haiti Search Center. So people would always call me trying to get an Amber Alert, and they'd confuse the names and get mad at me. And why don't I have an Amber Alert? I'm like, boy, if I could, you'd have one. So it's law enforcement that initiates them. And then there's a system that goes out. There's also a national database that goes out to law enforcement that has that missing flyer and all the information. It has been helpful. But when you have a questionable hire, you wonder, okay, so is everyone getting help, or is it a way to funnel certain kids, like she's saying? I don't know, but I believe what she's saying. I do. It go back to the experience with the U.S. attorney, the assistant U.S. attorney who trained on the laws for human trafficking, that suddenly thought some sort of semi-jail probation was acceptable when a life sentence probably would have been the punishment. So again, if you don't believe us, do the facts yourself and see if what he's saying is not possibly true. The other thing is that that system is a connection from law enforcement asking for help from the public. And you can't get around it. I can't make my own Lambert system. I can't, you know, so it's a funnel. There's no other way around it. I can't get around it. You know, I you know, me working for 3 years in missing persons, that was my option to get data the way I needed it out. I certainly did other things, but as far as getting to every police department in the country or having a searchable database where every police department could look for my kids that were missing, that was the only funnel.
Yeah.
And that's where you have to watch. I think we should be super critical of any of those where you're the only option.
Right. We've got about 4 minutes, just under. So but thank you for explaining that, because it's the constant questions, because it seems, well, that all seems conspiratorial. You're telling me that, look at, oh, we're all having a go at, we're all having another Clinton Foundation bash, and what's the list of how many people have been Arkansaded so far, and you're just basically talking out of your backside, and this is all a lie. It's not, and that is what is so difficult at times, isn't it, to actually put this over? It's a bit like and I'm there's no way I'm belittling any of this, but as a parent, the only thing I can then identify with the fact that, having been in a crowd when my children are younger, and you've got your hand on your child, and then suddenly you're in a crowd and that hand goes, and you are there for the seconds seemed like a lifetime, frankly, going, where have they gone? Right? I'm not going to name where that happened. Where have they gone? And you've
experienced that for years.
Yes.
Yes.
That panic you described, you experienced for years.
Yeah. Every day and again, for me too, it's like it's an every day I get up and it's like I do it again. And every day there's not, and I mean, for me, I don't think I would be able to function if I wasn't doing this. And every time I see another child prevented being taken into the system, I win. And God gives me another day to keep going, and I have hope. That's what it is.
No, Chi, thank you. I think we've just lost Dottie's feed, which is well, I'm praying she's gonna come back. I'm gonna bring back Dottie. Are you okay? Sorry about that. I think it's the
fine. I think the trucker's coming by.
Right.
I think some of the convoy may come by and take up some of my vehicles.
Okay, I've got you. We're talking. No, I won't reveal where you are, but I understand what's going on. T, I hear you really, really loudly, having met you in the summer and admire and full of admiration. I don't know how you do cope with that every day. I suppose it's like saying, how do you then compartmentalize that? Do you then compartmentalize that to cope with that?
I have to say, honestly, if I didn't have the faith in the Lord and that vision and that hope, there's no way I'd be sitting here. And I have to say, and it's helped me to have that God's put. I have to say, it's a miracle. I've had good people that the Lord's put in my place. A good group of, like I said, I had people that were forensic, the State Department people, the Dotties, that she led me to a whole nother, helped me get to another whole organization of people that, again, that were pretty high level that I can't say who they are. And again, because my situation was pretty, I mean, they really came after me for being a whistleblower, just so you're aware. And, but in that process, the Lord gave me hope by allowing me to learn and to be able to understand the law and be able to see how it really should work and how this could be prevented, and how, and also too, I was trained up to be an international executive administrator in this, and anti-trafficking organization, and to be able to learn to track and to code. And I learned how to do SRA is really kind of my specialty bloodline. So, and again, it helps me to see the unraveling of that and how the Lord is mending people and healing people, and to see some of those come out and come home. And it's God saying, your day is coming, and keep on keeping on. I'm right here with you. It gives me hope. He's with me. And that's why I'm still here.
Thank you. We've hit the wall of time, because I always try and keep them just under an hour because it makes it easier for sharing. But I would like to do this again. I think this conversation I would like to continue. There's a number of things to get into, especially we can also then take a segue and discuss various things that are happening in Texas, et cetera, et cetera. That would be amazing. And I just want to encourage everyone that eventually will see this, because I'm then coming against the shadow banning narrative, which I will then work hard to get round. But keep these dear ladies in your prayers and what they are doing. This is absolutely real. Sorry, Dottie.
I'd love to invite your audience to subscribe to my newsletter. It's free.
Go.
It's on Substack. So Substack, Dottie, Dottie, Laster, Lasters, Laster apostrophe, Dottie Laster's Traffic Report.
Right.
And we have a fun time there just educating. So Dottie Laster's Traffic Report on Substack. Come on over. We'd love to have you.
Please.
T, can you send me a link to that as well?
Yes.
Send me a link to that, because when I republish it, I'll make sure that information is in the bottom. Right. Can I just thank you from the bottom of my heart so much for joining me and taking and discussing this important subject. And the other thing I'd say to people eventually watch and listen, I'm very grateful. Please click subscribe, but also know that, I mean, T and I have met. There are, it's this whole thing that across the world, we all need to be encouraging each other in all that we are doing, and the battle that we are facing, because this is real. And I think the other thing is, on another time soon, I would like to discuss why people don't get this, particularly within the church, but that goes with a number of other issues. And I'm not just saying that to be controversial for controversial's sake, but things that, what people would call conspiracies are not conspiracies. As I've said, they are real. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm very honored to do that. And I hope, Dottie, T, that you will come back so that we could do this again.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'd love to.
No, thank you. Please join me on the other side, and I'll then have the official goodbye off camera. But I'm going to end the program and just say thank you so much for joining me. And I'll just play us out. Speak to you soon.